Yeah, so at the end of the day,
we're not at the end of the day. Yeah, we're just getting going. Welcome in and good afternoon, everybody. It is Rivals.com and the Maize and Blue review. Yeah, you can watch live now. You can listen after the fact. You can watch after the fact. I'm always trying to be. It's not very good if I wasn't in a good mood. I got on here and said, oh, not very good mood. But the fact is today I am in a good mood. I think it's a combination of the weather here in Southeast Michigan, and I'm just feeling pretty good physically, on track. Had a little injury for a couple days, took me down, and then I was back in action today and feeling pretty spry. So from that standpoint, everything is going good. And then, we're always here in pretty good. It can put you in a pretty good mood talking about Michigan. And so that's what the plan is today, is to talk about Michigan and spring ball starting on Tuesday, spring practice. And I will get to the players that I find intriguing heading into spring ball. And yeah, we certainly concentrate heavily on Michigan football. It's because most of you are interested in Michigan football, but it is basketball time. This is a great time of year if you are a basketball fan, and we start with the Cagers, the Maize and Blue. I guess back in the day, they used to put a cage around the courts or something, and then inside, it's that's why they dubbed them Cagers. So there you go. And the Cagers will be in Indianapolis, chilling with their double bye, waiting on probably Purdue or Rutgers or USC coming up on Friday, and we'll see what they're ready to do there. I think a lot of fans are taking how are the fans? Is it a wait and see approach? It's not a bad. That was the first thing that popped in my head. Taking a approach where they have very low expectations. I think that's another approach that you could take. And even if you take that approach and you're watching the game, they can draw you in pretty quick, even if you're thinking, oh, well, the season, I'm not expecting this team to do very much. But if you're there and watching, it'll draw you in. I can recall, I can watch a game just sitting there by myself. I don't need people around. I don't need to be at the game, but the more the merrier when it comes to watching games for me. And I don't mind going out. In fact, I like it going out to a restaurant or a bar, one that is not where the TV's tucked over in the corner and you're looking over there and nobody else is watching it. I don't like that. That can become irritating. No sound, nobody cares about the game, the people that you're with, that'll drag you down. So maybe I should have said, I don't mind going out. I say it was a sports bar where everybody's locked in. That's almost game atmosphere where everybody is invested and is, well, you can tell there's some people that are going to be like that. So whatever, and wherever it may find you, you may wait a day or two before you want to put that much time into it. And I know people are down about the team, and it's completely understandable why you would be that way. When I look at this, if I was filling out a bracket, I would look to these games coming up with, what do we have? Do we have games coming up here? I'm looking at the type is too small. I think they get well, let's see. If Michigan's playing on Friday, that means they'll be playing on Thursday. That means we're getting underway with these basketball games coming up today. So I was going to go just run through them really quickly for you. And I just wanted to see if one had started yet. And it has not. 3:30 Northwestern and Minnesota will tip there. I'll take Minnesota. Then we have Iowa and Ohio State at 6 o'clock. All of these games on Peacock. Ooh, that's fun. I don't know. Peacock, Iowa and Ohio State. I'll take the Buckeyes there. And then USC and Rutgers can be Rutgers. So then on the bottom, you've got Rutgers and Purdue. I'm going to take Purdue. This is pretty chalky so far. Wisconsin, Ohio State. Let me go and just put Ohio State through. You got to pick an upset somewhere. I think it'll be against Wisconsin. And then you got Minnesota against, what are we talking about here? Actually, I screwed it up, I think. Ohio State, Wisconsin. No, that's right. Minnesota, Oregon. Let's go. I'll have, am I going to take Michigan winning their game? I mean, if they play Purdue, I don't feel like they're going to win that game, but why not? Why not just say I'm going to take Michigan to beat Purdue? I'm going to take them to win one game and get to Saturday. You know, have a little fun. And that's what everybody wants. Anyways, we don't want to see them lose the first game. If they do lose the first game, you can immediately say, hey, good. They'll be nice and rested for the NCAA tournament. I've seen that argument, but I'm trying to work through that bracket. That wasn't the most fun. I remind you, you have any questions about basketball, you can put them in right now because we're going to be going to football, and I'll be asking you if you have any questions about football at that point. So, you know, basketball now, football in a couple minutes. Overall, the way I am looking at things when it comes to basketball, it would be very nice. How about get hot, win a game or two this week or next? That's what, I don't know. I was going to say that's the ceiling. I'm not sure that's the ceiling. It feels like that's the ceiling. Can they win one game? Of course, you'd rather have them win. If they're going to win a game, you'd rather have them win it next week than this week. But if they win this week, you'll feel better about next week. That's always the way. It's one of these things that happen. It's always the NCAA tournament if you're going to be able to pick. But I would like to. I guess this is just, I would like to see them get a win here, and I'd like to see them get a win next week. And it's doable. It's close to a toss-up on Friday night if they're playing Purdue or USC or Rutgers. You might not think so. That's what I think. And then I also think being a 4, 5, or 6 seed, that it's going to be close to a toss-up. Maybe if they're playing a mid-major and they have a size advantage, maybe Michigan will be more of you think a team that could be more of a favorite than you might expect. It's one of those things where you follow it so close, you're like, no, they're going to bow out. 2 losses. And that way, if anything happens differently, you're pleasantly surprised. And I completely understand that. So I get that part. So, but I think that they got a 50-50 shot on Friday. And then next week, whether it's going to be Thursday or Friday, I'm going to give them a little bit better than a 50% chance in that game. So how about that? That's where I'm at. They have very little pressure on them. It's not the same as football. People aren't sitting around freaking out. If Michigan loses on Friday for a night, there will be fans that really like the team that will slide out the gallows and say, oh man, this team is completely faded, and their expectations really drop for the NCAA tournament. But it's one of the great things about it is that the NCAA tournament and basketball as a whole sport, sometimes it can be very unpredictable. Maybe just imagine, would it be so crazy if they won 2 games this week or 2 games next week? That wouldn't be the craziest thing. We wouldn't really see it coming. I don't think anybody really is going to predict that, but it would be what a ride that would be to get to the second weekend. And certainly the NCAA tournament. And obviously, if they win 2 games this week, that would put them in the championship game. What a ride that would be. So buckle up. Could have a great ride forthcoming. We'll see what's going on. Now we have from the West Quad, Adam's house. It says Eno Etta is checking in. Well, Eno was on this show when he was a commit, and he was a fabulous interview. And then last spring, if you look on my, what's it called? TikTok, sorry. If you look on my TikTok page at Dennis Fithian, I did a nice post-game interview with Eno Etta, and he's one of my favorite players on the team. So if Eno Etta is actually watching the show, get ready. You are a player of intrigue, and we're going to be talking about Michigan football coming up right around the corner here. That's what's happening. What's up? The logo is good to go, and Mustafa's ready to get into some football. He says the most intriguing thing for most is how good Underwood is going to be early on. Well, let's save that. That's a good jumping off point for the football discussion. Let me just save that. We do have a basketball comment that says, if we don't turn the ball over 18 times a game and give the opponent 40 points off those turnovers, I'd feel more confident. What's the saying from your lips to God's ears? I think that's it. True enough. Take care of the ball. Get a chance to advance in the Big Ten tournament if you're doing that. Shoot well, shoot better. They can't shoot any worse. And take care of the ball. Hadley, one of the favorites of the program, says, if basketball ends up playing Purdue Friday, it's one and done. If they play anybody else Friday, they win, but lose in the semis. Just win, baby. Hadley a little scared of Purdue. It's understandable why you'd be scared. Michigan did go to West Lafayette earlier in the year, and they got, was January the 24th, and got manhandled. So even though they returned the favor, they didn't manhandle them, but they did beat them. So you can understand that. All right, we go to football and intrigue for spring. You can join the Maize and Blue right now today by going to michigan.rivals.com. Why would you do that? Well, spring practice is getting ready to get underway Tuesday. Maybe Eno can verify that. It is Tuesday that these guys will be getting it underway. And then, you get the spring game all the way April 19th. There will be things that people will be talking about, that things that will be coming out of spring practice, and we will be eagerly awaiting those. And you want to see some of those factoids, some of those stories. Well, that would be one great reason to join up the Maize and Blue Review. If you like recruiting, that'd be another great reason to join up with the Maize and Blue Review. You like talking to Michigan fans, like-minded Michigan fans, all day and all night over on the Den. That'd be another great reason to join up the Maize and Blue Review. Go to michigan.rivals.com to get that done. Nobody feeling great. West Quad says, no, he's not Eno, but he did walk on, just an Eno fan. Hey, that's all right. We're all Eno fans, right? So let's go. Yeah, so we like everyone that's on here. Well, do we like Spartan? Yeah, sure. We like everyone, but especially Michigan fans. That's the way I would say it. So the jumping off point is what Mustafa had to say. If we're talking about intrigue, the most intriguing thing for most is how good Underwood is going to be early on. No doubt. Everything with Michigan football right now leads with Bryce Underwood. Anywhere you want to go, it's Underwood. What kind of record they're going to have? Well, how quickly is Underwood going to play? What kind of offense is Underwood? What kind of pass? Underwood. It's all Underwood. I mentioned the Maize and Blue Review. Trevor McHugh, the senior editor, he had a nice, meaty, Underwood Post yesterday or the day before. He had talked with not one, not two, like 3 or 4 different folks that have seen Underwood recently, and he was commenting on what those people told him on the Maize and Blue Review about Underwood. I'll give you a little bit of a teaser. It was all good. So that's good about Bryce Underwood. But so for the intent of the intentions of this particular podcast, when you talk about the most intriguing thing. So yeah, Underwood. I'm intrigued by all of we're intrigued by everyone, but everyone's going to be intrigued by the freshmen that are in for spring. Everyone is going to be intrigued by the transfers. So I took the transfers and all of the freshman players that are going to be in for spring, and I put them over here. And then I said, who are the other players that are going to intrigue me the most? And I just threw a list together, and I just put them all up here. I was in a hurry. I thought my dog had run away, and my daughter was freaking out about that. So it didn't go, the preparation of me typing all of these names out and everything did not go as smoothly as I would have liked, as our 1-year-old golden retriever was running all around Peach Mountain. We thought we had lost her for a little bit, but she's back. She's good. It was only about 1 or 2 minutes of despair, but when she came running, I was relieved. Certainly my daughter was. All right. So I just put all the names on the list. I'll just take them one by one. Dominic Nichols on the defensive side. Last spring, Dominic Nichols and Cole Sullivan played in the spring game, and both of those guys flashed. Both of those guys made some plays. Both of those guys were talked about by anybody who was at the game or watched the game. Everyone mentioned Cole Sullivan, and everyone mentioned Dominic Nichols. Now, I didn't see, we saw any of those guys very much, if at all, throughout the course of the season. But I think that the intrigue after having a solid spring and knowing what Michigan has lost, I think whether it's at the edge with Nichols or at linebacker with Sullivan, I'm intrigued if those guys could get into the 2 deep and one of those guys could become a star. Now, I tied Nichols and Sullivan together. It felt like those guys got talked about in tandem when anybody was talking about last year's spring game. Guys that did see the field and may have been a little bit of a surprise were 2 guys. It felt like that, and I wouldn't be surprised if I went back and watched the film if they put both of these guys out there at the same time every time that they were put in games. And that's Mason Curtis, who is a safety, and then Josiah Edmond, who is a corner. Those guys got some burn. They got some playing time, and it should be noted that when it was time to put in some backups, these were the first 2 on defense that got out there. And even in some, not where you just say garbage time, backups and, getting some real reps. Curtis, what's he, 6'4" as a safety? He jumps out. His hair makes him a 7-footer, but you can't tell that. He's still big, rangy, a safety, and you can see him make some plays. And then you're like, all right, who's this? You're checking, like, who's this 16? Oh, that's Edmond. Can these guys take an additional step? Obviously, Michigan likes them. They were getting time, and it wasn't always garbage time. Mason Curtis and Josiah Edmond. So I'll tie those 2 together. I'll also tie Samaj Morgan and Fred Moore together, the 2 wide receivers. Both of these wideouts in Morgan and Moore, and these guys now are both juniors. And so we have seen bits and pieces of these guys for 2 years. Not so much last year. There really wasn't a whole lot. What Fred Moore, the one game, was it against Texas, was down the middle, and There were some complaints that he, pulled up on a deep ball or whatever. I wasn't feeling that myself, but I think even the coaching staff was like, they didn't like the route or whatever Fred Moore had. But, Fred Moore has shown some flashes in different games. The same thing, obviously, with Samaj, who had that great run in the Big Ten title game, and he also flashed a little bit in the championship season, so much so that yours truly was putting him as a star for last year's team that never materialized. And for a lot of people, because Morgan wasn't a star last year or more, they're acting like that these guys are boss or they're never going to go anywhere. You need that quarterback. You got to have that guy. It reminds me, and I don't know how good these guys are going to be. I like both of them in different spots. Like I said, they flashed. You've seen it too. I'm not down on them like other people completely cast these guys aside and don't think about, well, they had an orgy, whatever you want to call them, a fullback throwing them the ball and a bunch of other dudes that couldn't throw the ball to these guys. That's a big deal. I invoked my fantasy team from a few years ago. It's more than a few years ago now, when I had DeAndre Hopkins when he was playing for the Texans. And when he had Deshaun Watson prior to any of the massage table stuff, Deshaun Watson was one of the better quarterbacks in the league. And man, he would just pepper DeAndre Hopkins, and it was great. But then Watson was gone. And Hopkins had guys, I don't even remember, the guy they ended up trading to Cleveland, attaching picks to him, throwing to him. And he looked like he was the worst wide receiver in the NFL. No production, no action, nothing going on. You need the quarterback. Don't get too down on these guys, both Morgan and Moore, until we see what a real quarterback can do with them. So they're intriguing to me. They're sitting there in plain sight, and I think a lot of Michigan fans have moved on and act like these guys can't play, where I'm telling you, put these guys in focus. These guys could be your top two wideouts on the team next year. And you'd be like, I don't think that bodes well. It might. I know how you feel. That doesn't mean that that they can't be those kind of players. A couple more here of players of intrigue. Jimmy Rolder is intriguing. If you just looked at when he was playing in games over the last couple years, you would find that Rolder would be out there sometimes in the first or the second quarter. And we're not talking about against teams that Michigan was already up on. We're talking about Big Ten play, talking about against Ohio State. All of a sudden you'd be like, who's this? And they'd be like, it's Jimmy Rolder. I think they like Jimmy Rolder. I think Jimmy Rolder has had to deal with injury, some injury stuff. And I think he could be one of those players under the radar. He's intriguing. That's why he fits this page. Jimmy Rolder is intriguing to me. I have two more, and then I'll take some of your feedback. Devon Baxter was as highly thought of as Dominic Nichols, these guys that we have seen at Edge who were playing in the spring game and people were excited about. And Baxter, I'm intrigued because I haven't heard anything about him, and yet I was expecting a lot from him. That's why he lands on this page. And the other one I think we can all agree is intriguing is, we're talking about Bryce Underwood. We're talking about Mikey Keene. We're talking about the rehab for Davis Warren. But are we talking about Jaden Davis? Now, when it comes to Jaden Davis, I follow his Instagram. And yesterday or the day before, I saw that he had a story. And I clicked it. and he was doing some drill work. And he was, I don't remember if he was on one knee or both knees throwing the ball, like pitching the ball 20 yards down the field. But the thing that stood out to me is that he had the same motion as he had when he came into Michigan. He's still shooting that ball from below his ear. He's a sidearmer. And that doesn't give me great confidence in him and him, being a surprise player or that kind of thing. I don't like that, but there have been plenty of players that I'll call it a funky motion. He's got a funky motion that have gone on, and some have made the Hall of Fame. I think about when I saw Phillip Rivers at NC State. I said I would never pick this guy. He takes the ball and pushes it from his chest down the field. Anybody could jump up and knock that ball down. Phillip Rivers has a terrible motion. I would not draft him. Phillip Rivers is pretty good. But there's always one or two. I don't think it bodes well for him that he's throwing the ball like Danny Wolf throws a pass in a basketball game with one-handed, and over here it doesn't give me a lot of confidence. But they're allowing him to do it. They haven't changed it. And so we'll just have to see about it. And we're going to watch it and be like, is that going to be something? The conversation that you get into with him, say, hey, let's, instead of throwing the ball here and you're 5'11", let's have the 6-inch up classic throw. And that's going to really help you out that much more. But now look, that was just a 3-second Instagram story where he was shooting it out here. Who's to say that he hasn't worked on his delivery and that he is a more of a classic thrower, and that he was just in this drill working on some sidearm stuff, his old security blanket, some of the sidearm stuff. Maybe. And we do know by watching the film from the ReliaQuest Bowl when they had the quarterbacks out there and they were just in some drill work, just throwing the ball around. They weren't just doing some, different step drops in the pocket and firing the ball down the field. They were doing all kinds of jumping over things, scissor splits in the air, sidearm, underhand. I mean, they were doing all that stuff. So, maybe that was just 3 seconds of Davis being his old self. So we'll see. I don't know, but it was worth at least mentioning. So that's where I'm at. Let's see where the people are at. was listening to that Wink pod, who said he had some good things to say about Curtis during that podcast. That's good. A follow-up from Mustafa, who says Cole Sullivan. Yeah, talking about last year's spring game. No doubt. Is this true? We're down to the last couple messages here. Logo says he thinks the 25 season will only be as good as our wide receiver. I think we should have prioritized that position more in the transfer portal. I disagree with that. I disagree. One is that I think they did prioritize it in the transfer portal. They got McCulley, and then they got another one. They got 2 wide receivers in the transfer portal. How many more did you want them to get? Now, you wanted them to get a superstar, 5-star wide receiver, and I get that part. But Michigan is still, this is the trade-off, Michigan is going into this season like they were last year and like they were the previous 3 years. They are going in as a hard hat, smash, run the ball first team. Grind it out, smash. That's the way they're playing. That's what, even if Bryce Underwood starts from game 1, they're still going to be run it and smash, run the ball. Now, you might be like, oh my God, it's painful to hear. Well, I think it's going to be there is going to be a change. You play to the strengths of your team. Now, look, maybe Underwood is a 17, just turned 18-year-old, not only wins the job as a freshman, but he's throwing the ball to the moon. He understands processing the entire field. He goes through all of the reads. He's got command of the entire offense. And they're just like, what the hell? Let's just unleash him. Now, like, of all of the things that can happen, Underwood could to lead to Underwood's greatness. He doesn't have to start from game one. If he does start from game one, I would highly doubt that it's going to be throwing the football all over the place, or he has done all these things that I just imagined. There's a very small chance that that's going to be the deal. And then they've got a ton of other wide receivers that, again, this is just one of those things, and I'm not mad at you, Logo, but I think it's probably some of the other podcasts that you listen to, or maybe it's just fan stuff. But if you look on the list that I have just put up on the board, out of the 3 M's, McCulley, Moore, and Morgan, those are likely going to be your 3 wide receivers that are out there. Now, yeah, you can say, oh, well, this guy's going to be in the slot. He's an X. He's okay. That's fine. You want to argue that, or you've got your own depth chart. But these 3 are likely. Now, if McCulley is anything, there's been nothing but good returns. We'll have to see. I don't know. But I have seen enough of Moore and Morgan to be a little bit intrigued. You should not be down on them. You're talking about it's going to hinge on the wide receiver position when Michigan's going to be a run-first team? No, it's not. I don't think it's going to come from the second group. These last 2 groups are pretty interesting. Goodwin, Stewart, Charleston was a transfer, but I put him in with this group just for the trio. But would it be super shocking if Shannon Goodwin or Amarian Stewart were better than one of these first 3 mentioned, McCulley, Moore, or Morgan? Not a super shock. And then you have the 3 freshmen, Jacob Washington, Jamar Browder, Andrew Marsh. And did you look at was it Nick Marsh from Michigan State? Andrew Marsh is ranked higher. I was looking at Rivals, but he's ranked higher. And look at what Nick Marsh did. Nick Marsh is a star. Who's to say Andrew Marsh isn't going to be a star if you got a quarterback that can get him the ball, or Browder, or Washington? And they do have one more phase with spring ball. If all those guys are, as you say, and again, I'm not just singling you out, although it definitely seems like I am doing that. Logo, I think that whoever you go to for your Michigan football news, if they're the ones that are down in the wide receiver group and they're talking about Michigan's only going to, I'll disagree with your expert that you're, taking your cues from. And this part that they should have prioritized, I think that they have prioritized it, and they still have another phase to go. Now, look, if we were sitting here last year at this time and you're saying, hey, I think they need to go to the transfer portal, I agreed with that. I was thinking that, I was thinking that it was late because they won the championship and, they were in a tight spot. And I was thinking that they must think that the guys that they have are better than everyone else that's out there in the transfer portal. Well, knowing what we know now, I mean, that was one of the complete swing and misses of all time. And Sharon Moore has to take that. This team had an opportunity to go out there and bolster their quarterback room, and they thought Alex Orji, the brain trust, were sitting around and thought, okay, well, we'll go with him. We really like what he brings to the table. Tuttle, who didn't play in the spring and didn't play in fall practice and was coming off and had to be at least I would say a gigantic red flag. They looked at it and were like, okay, we feel good about him. Should they have felt good about a gigantic red flag in total. Davis Warren, who ended up being the best out of the three, was a complete turnover machine, and I don't know what kind of early on he was. I don't know what kind of drills and reps and live action they were putting him through for them to think, oh, yeah, well, we'll just go with Warren. Again, I mean, this is beating a dead horse. I'm going back because if you were over here saying they should have prioritized a quarterback because, this thing could get pretty dicey pretty quick with at least what we know. But the part about we know, we have seen Moore and Morgan, and we have tape on McCulley playing in the Big Ten. And then I think even sight unseen with the recruiting rankings of the trio of freshmen that are coming in, and then the two, I think they could find one or two out of this bottom group and one or two out of this top group where I think that to me looks, I feel better about okay. I was going to say I feel better about the wide receiver room this year than the quarterback room from last year, but the quarterback room is the worst of all time. So yeah, I think everybody would probably say that, especially since we know what we know. So Scott, going back to the gambler, Kenny Stabler. How old are you, Scott? How many people on here even know who Kenny's the snake? What did I call him? The gambler. Oh, that's Kenny Rogers. The snake. Yes, Keegan, it will be smash. Here is West Quad chiming in. Yeah. Yeah, these receivers, we don't really know, but they aren't as bad as the QBs made them look. You know what I saw from Samaj in the championship season? Not only his ability on the punt return, but that was a pretty big deal to see him flash like that. It was really, they would throw quick screens out to him. Talking about Samaj Morgan now. And he made plays with the ball in his hand. He would sift up the field, and next thing you know, here's 5, here's 7, here's 10 yards. Oh, touchdown. Morgan. Let's go back and look at some of those touchdown runs that he had. It wasn't like they just threw it out to him and he was just dancing into he had a clear path. He was making moves. He's making money moves, cuts, getting in there. And then other times, one jumps out. I think it would be against Michigan State. I'd have to look. Little 10 yards down the field, turned, and he just sat down, put his hands out, and the ball was fired right into him, and he collected it, and then he turned and went upfield. And I was like, that looks good. He reminded me of Antonio Brown before the CTE kicked in. So I'm pretty high on Samaj Morgan. And then, he didn't do anything last year. Nobody did. And they were throwing for 60 yards a game. So tough to look good. Anything on the new Ronnie Moore? Well, you mean, I don't know who the new Ronnie Moore. You mean, I don't know, Derek Moore? I don't know who that is. You'll have to tell me more. Yeah, Haynes falls into the category of we're all intrigued about all of the transfers and all of the true freshmen. Keegan has got a little intrigue about O'Leary, Browder, and Bell. All right. Logo coming back. We'll give him his time since I was picking his last message apart. He says, every team knows we're going to run the ball. That's true. I'm saying I wish we had a more proven guy as a wide receiver. We need to be a more unpredictable team on offense. Yeah, they need to be a team that can throw the ball. And last year was a disaster. So, like me sitting around trying to paint it like it wasn't and everything else. I'm with you on that. I think we're probably on the same page. I understand what you're saying. Mustafa thinks someone will emerge as a surprise. Well, this wasn't a good idea, Keegan. Thinking that a guy that has not been able to stay healthy at all was not available in spring, and then there was, I guess they didn't know he wasn't going to be available in fall, but is that a good idea? If these wide, like McCulley, I don't really know about, but if McCulley doesn't participate at all in spring ball, should they be like, oh, we're good with him? We'll feel real good about him going in? Probably not. It's easy to say now. Keegan's still looking at the wideout from UConn. Yeah, I don't. When's the last time they had an elite wide receiver? Was Kojo an elite wide receiver? I'm as big a fan as the Michigan wide receivers that they had, but when you're talking about an elite wide receiver, we don't know. Yeah, I think they tried to get elite wide receiver talent, but again, if you're a team that's hanging your head on running the ball, it doesn't matter if you're dropping gigantic bags. And your idea is, hey, we want you to block, and these guys want to eat. I think here's a little prediction for you that next year Michigan will be flooded with top-ranked wide receivers. There's my prediction for you. I think Michigan will pick up I think they're going to get Sadler. I don't know that. He's a Sadler close to a 5-star from Cass Tech. I think they're prioritizing him in state. One of the top players in the state, the top wide receiver in the Midwest, one of the top wide receivers in the country, right down the road. He's a priority. I think they're going to get him. Bryce will throw the ball. We need a receiver. All right. Rod Moore. Is Headley talking about Rod Moore? And I completely missed that. Ronnie Moore. Okay, that's why I screwed it up. I would say when it comes down to Rod Moore, that there was Wink said he wasn't running, which set off alarm bells for Michigan football fans. And I would say that, and then there was, I'm going to say it was a report. Then I heard that it wasn't related to the knee injury, what it was keeping him out now. Is that good or is that bad? But the addendum on that is that he was expected to be back in time for the season. I don't know if that's going to have him out of spring ball or not. Can't imagine that he's going to be out there hitting too much and everything if he's not running yet. But so I put this into the category of being worried if I'm a Michigan football fan, because I don't know what the injury is, because I've just heard that, oh, well, he's still going to be okay. I'm going to be worried about that if I'm a Michigan football fan, to be honest with you. I mean, the coaches and can say whatever they want, or the inside be like, oh, he's going to be okay. Okay. I'm still worried about it. I'm worried that a guy that you're counting on to be the quarterback of your defense, that missed the entire year last year, that before spring ball last year went down with an injury, and now, he should be back and up to, full speed, and now we hear he's not running. That's worrisome. So, yeah, that's the additional part. Supposed to be okay. It's not the same injury. It's not the knee and whatever he's dealing with now. So you take that for whatever it is. But, yeah, I put that in the category where I'm worried. And if you're somebody that's like, don't worry about things like that, don't worry about it. That's it. That's it. Never a bad time to put this number up. 1929. 1,929 days since OSU beat Michigan at football. Scott talking goats. Penny Fithian claims Dennis did not bring back any leftovers last week after the Maryland loss. Penny's pretty happy. For the most part, and if you don't know who Penny Fithian is, it is short for Penelope, one of my goats. And those goats mostly just get hay, and then they get a little bit of grain, and then they can go around and eat leaves and whatever else they can pick up. They're pretty happy now that there'll be some green popping here shortly for them. They'll be going crazy. But once in a while, I know my wife was eating these, I don't even know, like there's some kind of chips, but nothing that I like. But Penny, she liked them. I like chips. Oh, that's it. All right. Ferris is talking about no gold pans, fourth in the Big Ten, a natty light. You know, I got to give it to Ferris. If I had to put Ferris into a category, I would say that he is the A1 Michigan fan. Michigan fans care as much about, what's going on with their team and recruiting, and but they also care about their positioning towards their rivals. What can I say towards Michigan State and the nonsense that went on at the end of the game that I can, throw in their face? Give me something that I can throw in their face. What happened to that basketball game? Give me something I can throw at Ohio State. Something I can throw in their face. It's always that, and that's part of the rivalry. Not everybody is into it as much on that side or enjoys those angles. But Ferris, there are Michigan fans that love the team, that love every bit of information, love the prospects and anything, and then hate anything and want all the information that they can jam at and jam up at their rivals, and they can't get enough of that. So Ferris is in that category, and I think people like him for it. Scott, I don't know, this is some crazy talk. You know what? I saw a nickname for the two of those guys today. I don't know if it was somebody just making it up or if that's what they were being dubbed themselves, but it was Marshall. It was Law and Order, because you got Justice, Marshall and Justice. I don't know who put that together. I didn't open it up to see if that was actually something that they had come up with, or if it was a fan that had come up with it, or if it was maybe somebody on Twitter. But the Marshall and Justice combination of Law and Order. I'm here for it. Sounded good to me. That's it. All right. Hey, that's going to do it. Thanks so much. Friday, are we looking at, is basketball going to be going on during the show? No, but the following week, we'll have to stay tuned for the Friday show. That might be a floating show. That might be a show that I'm taking off. NCAA tournament. Michigan's going to play, and we'll just have a basketball show. But that's next week. We'll see you on Friday. We'll see you over on the Maize and Blue Review. Join up by going to michigan.rivals.com. I appreciate everybody for joining us and your contributions. Take care, everybody. Have a great day. Bye. Oh, Dusty May. Great job.